answer to the question was a very, very quick no. I didn't have to think about it for long at all. The question was, do you think West Ham have any ambition other than survival this season? I don't. And for that reason, I think you could probably safely say that this is a write-off. Now, you could look at it in two ways and think, well, okay, maybe the club have admitted they've made a mistake, and actually the long-term strategy is to get someone really bloody good in place for next summer, and then get somebody in now in the interim, admit your mistakes, and sort of carry on from next season. In which case, that would make this season a write-off, which really I think is quite hard to swallow, and I think quite hard for the club to make a case that you, as fans, should become invested in the season and keep paying your money and keep attending and doing all that if they are no longer invested in the season. I think there's a number of things that have prompted that. A couple of them are only rumours, and how much, on its own, how much sense can an isolated rumour make? Not an awful lot. But when you start feeding it all in together, you think, well, you know what, there's just nothing. There is nothing remaining this season, I'm sorry to say. There is no urgency at West Ham that every point is precious. That's gone. You can't even make the case. You cannot make that case. If every point was precious at West Ham, Lopetegui would have been gone quite some time ago. The more I look at what happened against Wolves, particularly the number of times they got in behind us, particularly they were very, very unlucky not to be awarded a penalty at least, some suggest two. You think we really got away with one there, and I do think they were poor. And I will be adamant, I thought Leicester City were poor when we played them again. And it would appear that the club would certainly believe that that's going to be enough to keep us safe, beating poor teams. And I think we'll do that, and I think we will be safe. And I think that certainly when you look at the Premier League at the moment, and you see that we're 1 point behind Manchester United, if you sort of close your eyes, put your fingers in your ears and go, la, 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 like that, you could probably allow yourself to think that we might look up and things might get better. But I do struggle to see a solitary team, and I mean a single team that's above us in the league, that I think will finish above with the current manager in place. Now, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, I would absolutely love to be proven wrong. I would really love Lopetegui to rock up at Dean Court. I'd love him to turn Iraola over to have a tactical plan that's going to kill him. I'd like to think the same of Brighton as well. But I suspect that two separate things are going to happen. I suspect that Iraola will already be looking at the blueprint that I think that Leicester City exploited pretty damn well. And that, to be fair, Wolverhampton Wanderers were aware of, but just didn't exploit because they didn't put the ball in the back of the net as many times as we did. But they had 19 shots, same amount as we did. I think Iraola will be looking at that and thinking, I'm going to get West Ham. I think he'll have a tactical plan, and I think they'll do us. I'd love to be proven wrong, that actually it's the other way round. That actually Lopetegui is looking at Iraola thinking, I'm going to get them in this way. And to be fair, he could look at the cup game earlier this season when we did win. But we were crap that night. I mean, we were really, really crap. Brighton, I'm not sure Brighton are going to change an awful lot against us. I just think Brighton are going to play how Brighton play, and I think we'll find it really, really tough. But then, are we at a case where, well, that's okay, because if we get to Southampton and we can beat Southampton, who are a poor team for all their lovely style of football, they don't have brilliant players, they're a poor team. Is it going to take a poor team to beat us? Is that what it's going to take? Is it going to take Southampton to beat us? Well, ordinarily you'd say yes, but it sort of happened with Leicester. And I just look at it now, and then you look at a couple of the transfer rumours, and this is what I was talking about with rumours being sort of factored in. If you look at, okay, let's go with the Callum Wilson one. There's little doubt that West Ham need to bring in a striker this coming transfer window because of obviously what's happened to Antonio. Fulkrug is. He's a conversation for another day, really. He's a video in himself. Injury-prone, homesick, didn't get onto the pitch against Wolves. Even just allowing for that, and even if we don't expand on that point anymore, you're going to have to cover that off, which leaves you with Danny Ings, right? It leaves you with Danny Ings. And Danny Ings, You know, he's had some nice little bright cameos this season. He's not fit to lead the line up front for West Ham. What are we going to do? Carry on playing Jared Bowen up there? I just don't think that's the case. We need a striker. If Callum Wilson might be the answer, could you imagine? And I know he scored well. I know he scored well against us in the past and whatnot. Maybe, you know, signing him stops him from scoring against us. But he is a striker at the tail end of his career who's injury prone. Well, that's what we already have. That's what we have. We have that in abundance, don't we? Surely if we're going to do anything, we go out and we go and buy or loan a young up-and-coming striker. That's that. So, look, it's just a rumour, but it's not unbelievable. It's not like anyone could say to me, "Yo, you're ridiculous. West Ham wouldn't do that." Well, we have, and we do. That's sort of what we do. You would struggle to find an example of us bringing in. Well, I've just told you examples of older strikers, injury-prone strikers that West Ham do sign. You'd struggle to show me an example of a young striker that we sign who's up and coming. We don't, do we? Certainly not in the last 2 or 3 years. I think that in itself, it's a stopgap, isn't it? Whatever we're going to do in the transfer window will be a stopgap. I'm not entirely sure we stopped doing it, realistically. And I just wonder where we're going with this. If I had, I would probably accept it in many respects if I had some faith that there was a genius plan at the end of the season. That maybe at the end of the season we're getting De Zerbi. Or we're getting, whatever, Iraola. I keep saying the same one. De Zerbi, Iraola, Marco Silva. Marco Silva's not great. I don't think he's got a great record of bringing through youth players. I think that's something that's going to need. We need somebody to do that. But it's not anyone. I think those guys, I would take them. I think they tick boxes. I think they're ambitious. I think young, up and coming. And I think, obviously, I guess Silva's not that young, and I guess he's not that up and coming. But you've got the Premier League experience there as well. And I think they have a go. And they're pragmatic enough as well. They're pragmatic enough to change tactics to suit the occasion. They're not so wedded to their beliefs that they're just going to stick to it. And they're certainly not malleable enough, like Lopetegui, they're going to join a club and be told what to do, which appears to be what's happened. Defensive manager comes in, been told to play attacking football, can't do it. And I think the final thing that I think has really got me concerned is... Well, there's two things. I'll tell you about both of them. I think the final thing that's got me concerned is the rumour or the suggestion that we may be willing to offload Mohamed Kudus in this upcoming transfer window. I think it would be a bad mistake. But I do believe it. I do believe that we would. And I do believe that Kudus would want to go. And I absolutely would understand why anybody would want to leave West Ham at the moment, because I just don't think it's a good place to be. I think the other one was Thomas Frank. Now, Thomas Frank's obviously done really, really well at Brentford this season. And he's massively flavour of the month. And not just because his team are doing well and obviously doing well in the Premier League. And they have done well, let's be fair. Year after year, Brentford have done well. They lose players and they continue to do well. It doesn't matter whether it was it's sort of like Ollie Watkins or Ivan Toney more recently. Sai Ben Rama was he their player of the season maybe when we got him? I can't remember, not entirely sure. That they're constantly losing players. Even Ericsson, when they got Ericsson there and he was really, really good and he walked away. They lose players but they carry on. They still seem to maintain the ability, even though they're a relatively small club, they maintain the ability to be a mid-table club, irrespective of what happens. Anyway, he's very vogue at the moment, Frank. I think largely based on some clips that have emerged on social media of him being filmed in the dressing room. And it's good stuff. I've got to say, I'm not impervious to it. It's good stuff. Very motivational. He looks great with the players. And off the back of that, people say, well, West Ham should move heaven and earth to get this guy at West Ham. And he did really well, didn't he? I think in the summer he was on, I don't know, either the BBC or ITV panel, and he impressed with his punditry work, seemed to be very, very sharp tactically. Obviously, he's sharp tactically. But I look at someone like him, and whilst he's not maybe in my top three that I mentioned there, I'd certainly take him. In a heartbeat, I'd take him. But whilst I wouldn't blame Mohamed Kudus for leaving West Ham, Thomas Frank would be mad, absolutely mad, to join West Ham. And I don't think he would. And why would he? Why would he? We are rudderless, completely rudderless. We don't have an identity, we don't have an ethos, and we don't have an obvious direction of travel. I couldn't tell you what Tim Stighton's plan is. I couldn't tell you what the board's plan is. And obviously, so therefore, it's no surprise that I can't tell you what our manager's plan is. But I think Thomas Frank would take one look at West Ham and how West Ham are run. He'd take one look at Brentford, and it's a slick, oiled machine. All right, they might not be doing it's not quite as Hollywood a job as Brighton are doing, but there's a lot of similarities there. It's very slick, it's very good. And you do look at Brentford. You could say the same for Brighton, to be fair. And you think you could take a component part out of there, like the coach, and then someone else slots back in and they'll do great. And I think they will. You can take a star player out of there and someone else will slot back in and they'll do great. But this is where it's come to. And this is why I think West Ham have probably written off the season. But the last thing that sort of popped in my head when I was thinking about this, when I was asked if West Ham would be content just to survive, and I said, yeah, I think they would, was that it's been quite a quick shift in terms of it's only taken 3 or 4 years to happen, but it has happened, and it's happened quite slowly. So they say you don't incrementally, you don't notice small change. That when did it become so that a manager, and I know I've made this up, I've made this scenario up, but I think it's reasonable to suggest it. Nobody knows if Thomas Frank has been offered the job. All right? Nobody knows if West Ham have offered him the job. I get the impression West Ham don't identify these. I think we're blind to it. Honestly, I think we've got blinkers on. I don't think we notice who the good managers are. I just don't think we know. It doesn't matter. At the moment, it's Potter. He's yesterday's man. I mean, he might come on and he might do well. I don't think in the same way that we chased Benitez when he was yesterday's man. I just think it's what we do. Lopetegui's yesterday's man. David Moyes, okay, he did do well, but he was yesterday's man. What my point is, you could pick any one of those, but we're not that young up and coming coach. I've just recorded a video with my old man actually, and was just saying to him, I don't think we even knew who Iraola was before he joined Bournemouth. Pretty sure we didn't. I know after the event that Stighton has said, I recommended Hurst. Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. We didn't get him, so I can only go on that. And I'm looking at the club as a whole. I don't think we know who these guys are. There'll be someone absolutely doing the business in Germany, in League Two in France, or in whatever, the second division in Spain. We won't have a clue. We won't have a clue who they are. Not a Scooby-Doo. It's yesterday's man, that guy. We've got to get that guy that failed at Chelsea. Because he was good once at Brighton. It's historical stuff. We don't know. So there's been a shift in emphasis. There's been a shift in change. But if you just imagine for a second that West Ham had approached Thomas Frank, who is very fashionable at the moment, and Thomas Frank has said, no, I don't want to come. The biggest damning indictment of West Ham's current position is it would surprise nobody. Nobody would go, oh, how outrageous. How outrageous that that's happened. Everyone would understand, football fans, not just West Ham fans, football fans. Everyone would say, well, of course. They'd be sat around their Sky Sports panel, of course. So when did it become this? That West Ham, in terms of the efficiency and the organisation of their club, had become so bad that it became unlikely that we would be unable to attract the manager of Brentford.